All right, so hello everybody. Welcome to the Virtual Learning Lab hosted by the Small Business Center. I'm Katrin and I work for the Barrie Public Library. We are partnering with the Small Business Center on the Learning Labs. Our presenter today is Heather Wilson. She brings 17 years of corporate experience in retail banking, operations and management, and human resources and training and development. As a corporate trainer since 2010 and a certified coach since 2013, she has taught hundreds of workshops all across Canada. Heather launched her first business, Spark Your Vitality, in 2014, which specializes in leadership development and promoting healthy communication in the workplace. In 2018, she launched her second business, Cheetah Fusion Creative Agency, with a business partner to help business owners cultivate a solid brand and develop a marketing strategy for a strong online presence to grow their business. Heather spends her free time with her 3 beautiful children doing lots of fun activities outdoors. Let's get started. Please ask your questions at the end. Okay, Heather, let's hear it from you.
Well, thank you so much, Katrine. This is really exciting. I'm so grateful to have been asked to present today. Thank you to not only the Barrie Public Library, but also to the Small Business Center for asking me to present. This is such an interesting, huge topic. So I will do my best to really drill it down to some main key parts relating to how customer service and being more emotionally intelligent really connect. This topic is so near and dear to my heart. I've been teaching it around just over 10 years. And there are so many, there's so many components to it. It's a set of competencies that I'm going to pull from based on the Daniel Goleman model for why is emotional intelligence so important. So it's important when we're thinking about our emotional intelligence to, it's how we recognize our behaviors, our moods, our impulses, and that we manage them to the best of our ability given the situation at hand. So I'm going to give you a sneak peek into what this is all about and try and hit on some of the key points in today's webinar. All right, so our agenda, we're going to take a look at the 3 pillars of customer service. We're going to take a look briefly at what is emotional intelligence. In your booklets, you will get a handout after the webinar. It will break it all down for you a little bit more in detail, but today is really about just giving you the highlights and trying to make the connections to customer service and how you can manage well or help your customer manage when they're feeling triggered emotionally in a situation. Any of you interested in how the brain works? We're going to talk a little bit about brain science and what's really happening in our brains when we're triggered by a situation, whether to anger, to frustration, to sadness. What's really happening in the background. We'll take a look at how to overcome some of those barriers that through emotional intelligence and manage some of those stressful situations. And then we'll get into a Q&A at the end. So I just want to touch lightly on to make this sort of preliminary connection to customer service. We all go to work, I believe, whether you're in business for self. I imagine we have a number of different people watching today and listening today. But we have business owners, we have people who work in the service industry in various ways, whether you have internal customers or external customers. So internal customers would be people that you deal with internally within your departments, within your own corporation, within your own business. Leaders have customers and they are primarily their employees or their staff. And then that all ripples out to our external customers. So if you take, for instance, Barrie Public Library or Small Business Center, you all have internal customers, right? You have people that you work with and interact with every day. You affect how they do their work because one person will affect based on what they're doing, the services they provide, the work that they do day to day will affect and eventually ripple out to your external customers. So with all that in mind, when we walk into our office or our workplace each day, my guess is that you're all wanting to do a great job. And likewise, when a customer walks into your establishment, they're expecting great customer service. I think we could make that connection very easily. So the three main components in customer service, are how are we acting? What's our actual attitude towards not only, what we're doing or the work we do, but also our customers, our company. And then the appearance isn't necessarily just how we look physically, but how our facial expressions, our body language, how we show up to work. Are we clean and ready to work? Are we standing up straight? Are we poised to meet the day with whatever comes at us? So, if you think about any interactions that you have, whether you're a customer or a business owner or someone on the front line at your company, there's this interaction that's constantly happening. If you're on the phone, when you pick up the phone, how do you answer the phone? Do you answer it with enthusiasm? And we all have bad days. We all can acknowledge that. But likewise, customers can have bad days, especially if they've bought something and it's not doing what it was supposed to do, and they need to return it, or they need to get your help to make it work better, or something like that. So if you think about this whole cycle that we go through, everything that we do, say, and how we act really reflects not only on the company, but also on ourselves. So we want to be our best personal brand, even if we don't own our business. When we are operating in an organization, we always want to be at our best, I would imagine. So I think about when I walk into an establishment, and I'm going to use Shoppers Drug Mart for an example. There's a Shoppers Drug Mart near me where I live. And every time I walk in, if somebody is near that front counter, I get a hello, how are you? A nice, bright, cheery. Now, I don't know what's going on in that person's day, but I know when I walk in, I'm going to get acknowledged. I'm going to have a nice hello. They don't jump all over me to say, hey, how can I help you? But they're there, and there's a presence and there's an acknowledgement of my presence. So we used to call it in customer service the 4-foot rule. Now we sort of say, if you're in the line of sight, or if you're able to attend to a client in some way, shape, or form, we should give them a wave, even if we're with a customer, acknowledging, smiling, nodding. That can all be really great ways to hit on these 3 pillars: your actions, your attitude, and your appearance, representing your brand, your business, your organization that you work in. And that acknowledges your customer. And you're less likely to see that customer get irate as quickly. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But again, keeping in mind, our customer, yes, they're always first. They are why we continue to be in business. So we always want to treat them as well as we can, with compassion, empathy, and, acknowledge them. So let's face it, none of us wants to have an unhappy customer. We never want that to happen. We never want to deal with a difficult situation. But for those who develop a really strong emotional intelligence, you'll be more easily able to navigate those tough situations as they come up, and navigate them better than, if you don't have the tools. So today is really about that. Let's get into our topic. And I'm just going to move into our model here. And like I said, we'll have more detail in the booklets, the handout after the webinar. But what is emotional intelligence? Why is it so important to really build on our emotional intelligence? And some people say, you know what, I'm middle-aged now. How am I going to grow this? I am who I am. I'm set in my ways. Well, I would say, unlike IQ, which is usually sort of set in by age 16, that's your intellectual intelligence quotient, right? Emotional intelligence, or EQ, can be built on over time and for many, many years, as old or as young as you are. You can always be building up your emotional intelligence. So the top part here is really about that self-awareness. So when we have, the more we can improve our self-awareness. So this is really like thinking about what triggers us and trying to manage better in those moments, how our behaviors affect one another and ourselves. So if we're feeling triggered by a situation, we need to be able to breathe, right? Take that moment to say, okay, what's my role in this? What am I really feeling? And why am I feeling that? And what's this other person? How am I going to affect them? So that's a really high level self-awareness description. Self-management is sort of that next piece down, where it's not only do we want to be able to manage ourselves and our own behaviors and our emotions, but we can actually start to, as we build our own emotional intelligence, we can actually recognize when someone else is being triggered, and we can step into that moment of, hey, you know what, I can see you're feeling frustrated, and I totally understand that. So we can actually help support others when we're seeing and recognizing that their emotions are triggered. And that sort of filters down into, in the heat of the moment, when something's happening and you're feeling really triggered, you're feeling a little bit angry or frustrated. Maybe somebody's yelling at you across the counter, or they're on the phone and they might be getting irate. We can step into that self-regulation model, piece of the model here, and we can start to say, what are they really saying? And really tune into listening. So start asking yourself questions. That's the self-regulation. Breathe. Instead of retorting back and wanting to fight back, right? The fight, flight, freeze, which we're going to get to in a moment. We want to pause and listen to what you're hearing and seeing, if you can see them. Tune into what they're wanting. So their emotional need, what are they wanting right now? So that's the self-regulation. And then of course we can step into empathy. Once we can manage our own emotions and we can come into a place of, okay, so I'm hearing that you're frustrated. Let's learn more. I want to learn more. Tell me more. And this is where the empathy comes in. And you put yourself in their shoes as you learn their story or their situation. And wow, you know what? I'd feel really frustrated too. You know what? That would make me mad too. Let's try and dig deeper and find out what's really going on. That's the empathy and relationship management piece, where we're starting to anchor into this problem, focus on the problem or the issue, not the emotion. And all of a sudden, what do we recognize in people? We start to see them seeing you, tapping into your emotional intelligence and recognizing that you want to help. And if they are really yelling and getting upset, the best thing to do is just to say, nod and say, and check in, right? You don't just go silent if you're on the phone only, right? I can't see you all right now, but I always want to be cognizant of somebody, how they're feeling or their emotions. So it's really important that they feel heard, so that you can really start to build trust. You can demonstrate that empathy, not just say, I want to empathize, but right, you're going to demonstrate that you're empathizing with them and building that rapport, so that you can start to offer solutions. If you try and offer a solution, well, you need to call this department. I can't help you with that. Can you imagine? Imagine hearing that as a customer yourself. Imagine. So that's the stepping into their shoes, the empathy part of things. And it's very different from sympathy, by the way. Sympathy is when, you've been there, you've done that, and you say, oh, I know it's horrible when that happens. I've been there. Whereas empathy, you might be able to say, I'm not sure what's happened here, but I'm really sorry this has happened. Let me try and help you. So that was a little bit more there on that model. But I want to get into now sort of the science behind this and what's happening when they're getting triggered and they're feeling so emotional when they get to you and they get on the phone with you and you barely get, hello, how are you? How may I help you? And they're already right in there saying, you guys didn't send me this piece of the part to my product, or you guys said you were going to call me back. And you always hear the you guys, right? Like you're the problem. But what they're really saying is, I didn't get what I wanted. I don't have what I need to satisfy me as a customer. So what's really happening in that brain of theirs is they're being triggered. And you may even hear, and this is where we're going to get into the brain, and what's happening is you may even hear, last time I ordered something, the same thing happened, right? So have they already put in there, last time this happened? So listening to this story and how it's rolling out, you're going to understand where their emotion's coming from, right? So we can get into more of this digging into empathy, managing our own emotions, because the moment we can say, wow, oh, this has happened before, acknowledge, I'm sorry that this has happened. Let me try and help you. That's where you start to help them feeling in those trigger moments. So let's get into what's happening. So in this small part of your brain, I don't know if you can see my cursor moving here, in this small area of your brain. So we have sort of the neocortex and all kinds of cool stuff. I love this whole brain science idea. I think I really liked science too when I was in school. But I want to bring your attention to this little almond sort of shaped thing called an amygdala. And the amygdala is what holds onto it. It's your emotional memory bank. And so your amygdala is actually, if you think about it, it's nerves and everything stemmed or brought into your brain stem, into other parts of your brain that trigger sensory type things. So this is the reason why, and we'll get into the fight, flight, freeze in a moment, but this is the reason why when you are triggered, so you may have not heard the word amygdala, and it's the Greek word for almond, by the way, and it happens to be a very almond shape, so maybe that's why they named it that. But the emotional memory bank, when that almond or that amygdala is triggered, it sort of strikes on almost like a movie that rolls, it clicks on a movie. It sends them right back to a time when they were hurt, were threatened, they felt afraid or angry, right? It takes them right back to that movie. So this may not even be the real story that's happening, but they are triggered. That emotional memory bank brings them right back. The amygdala is said to keep us safe. And the reason that you've heard about if you see a bear, you're going to run. You might freeze, curl up in a ball. So that's that whole idea of when we're faced with something that's fearful to us, or we're afraid of, or we're feeling threatened, we're going to either fight, we're going to flee the scene, or we're going to freeze. And that's a feeling response. That's an emotional response to something that's happening. So when your customer says to you, last time this happened, you guys didn't respond to me, you didn't get back to me. So they're running that movie. Do you hear that? And you may have experienced this yourself. You go in and you say, this happened to me before, and I'm not going to buy from you again, right? So you start to hear that kind of language. When you hear that, the best thing that you can do to help them quell or have this amygdala trigger sort of dissipate, because in milliseconds, instantly, if you answer the phone or they come into you and you react to their emotional response to the situation, immediately they're going to go into what we call emotional hijack. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But what we want to do is we want to quell this. We want to listen to learn what's happening for them. So let's take a moment and kind of walk through this hijack process. So if we don't listen, so we're at this stage one here and they're emotionally triggered. This customer is irate because something didn't take place, the product didn't arrive when it was supposed to, or it didn't arrive and do what it's supposed to do. For instance, very high level, it's very general. But to give you an example, when they come in and they're upset, or they're calling in and they're upset, they're in this, I want something different. I want something to change, right? So when they're in stage one, they're not completely hijacked yet. If we answer with oh, you know what, that's not something I can handle. Can you please fill out this form? Can you please, I'm going to transfer you to the customer care department. Or as soon as we hear that, they go immediately to stage two. And it's almost like if you have, I'm going to demonstrate it here with a bunch of pens and markers. Normally, if I had heard a different response from the customer care person, if I had heard, okay, tell me what happened, let me hear your story, I would continue to have options. See, I've got all these options. My thinking mind is clear. Okay, so when we're going into hijack mode, our body's racing, right? So the customers, they may be feeling sweaty and their face may be heating up, right? Hot under the collar, turning red, right? So all those things that you see and you're hearing, those are feelings, feeling emotion, feeling frustrated, so that emotion is triggering their amygdala, right? They're going to, so what's happening is, As we move into stage 2 and they're not getting what they want, you transfer them to another department. Oh my goodness, the phone call drops or they get hung up on. Now they're in stage 3. Guess what's happening to all these options where they're feeling like I can think, okay, they're going to help me. I'm going to get the next person and they're going to be able to help me. All these things start to dissipate and all of a sudden they're furious, right? And this red piece here is starting to, they're infuriated, they're hot under the collar. The next person on the phone may feel a little bit taken aback. Hi, are you going to help me or are you going to pass me on to someone else? Have we heard this before, right? This is the hijack that's happening. Oh, I'm so sorry. They transferred back to me. I need to transfer you again. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? Right now they're hijacked. All they have is this one option to get angry, to completely blow a gasket, right? Because this one option is all they have. They are completely hijacked. Stage 4 is when the amygdala is running this movie. Nobody's going to help me. This is the same thing that happened last time. This is going to happen again. And I'm never going to deal with these people again, right? This is the hijack position that they're in. What we want to do, because they may fight, they may hang up on you. So the flight, they might hang up on you and say, forget it, hang up. Or they may freeze and say, and they'll go silent. And you'll say, hello, are you still there? I want to transfer you to the right department. Can I help? And they'll freeze. And then they might hang up. Or they might start yelling. So the hijack is when they have no options. They're on fire. They're hot under the collar. They're upset. They're angry. What we want to do is dissipate that. We want to take that away from them. We want to help them, right? So I've just sort of taken you very much through, because what's happening is the cortisol, the stress hormone, is racing through their body. And all of a sudden it's flooded their thinking mind, and that all those options that they have, you have, and it could be happening to you too. You may be feeling furious because this person might be irate and they may not be talking nicely to you. And I just want to put this out there for those of you in a customer service situation. We never need to tolerate cursing, depending on your policy, of course, but I don't think anybody's policy out there will have you handling or listening to curse words or nasty talking. So I just want to put that out there. So we never need to listen to that, but we can also be hijacked as customer service reps, as business owners. So when we're in that hijack mode, we can't think. So you might hear that. They may even hold their head and say, I can't think right now. You're not allowing me to think, right? So we're hijacked. What we want to do is we want to bring it back down to, how can I help? I'm hearing your frustration. Oh my goodness, I'd feel frustrated too. So because what's happening is we're not able to talk about this, right? When they're in hijack mode, when they're feeling frustrated. And all of a sudden, the intention of getting what they needed, just talking to someone, getting it resolved, has gone from that intention of resolving the issue to my emotions are high, I'm acting crazy, I'm acting, maybe crazy is a little strong, but I'm acting out, I'm not acting the way I would normally if I were in a conversation and getting the help I needed or being heard. So the impact and the intent are not in line. So what we want to do is we want to bring them into more of a place of, okay, so here's what I want to hear. I want to hear your story. I want to help you. So when we are in this mode, and you can fill in the blanks here, and I thought I was going to be able to type, but when we are in this mode of hijack or going into hijack, we feel, so the blank there is we feel before we think. So we feel before we think, because our thinking mind is filled with cortisol, the stress hormone, and we can't think. So in that moment, our amygdala, so that's the amygdala, that next blank, recalls a past event and triggers a fight, flight, or freeze response. And before we know it, all the possibilities or choices we thought we had or started out having, remember the options, right? All those markers, right? Those pens, those options are now gone, and we're just in full frustration mode and we're hijacked. So how do we fix this? How do we help us or our clients through emotional intelligence? So like I said, the more we can build our EQ and build on that problem solving, that being able to take pause, listen to learn, all those key words, right? When we're managing in difficult situations, when we're managing our emotions, is that we can't always do, by the way, we know this, right? If you're out there and you own a business, or you're working in a particular office setting or a customer service setting of some sort. So whether you're dealing with your internal customers, remember at the beginning we talked about maybe a department is looking for something and we can't get that to them, or that other department is supposed to share something with us for us to be able to complete our work and we can't get it. So this is where any number of difficult situations can arise, internally, within our departments, within our organization, or externally, in our relationships, right? So this can be all these skills, and our emotional intelligence and how we start to build it and improve it can help us manage any type of difficult situation or challenging situation. So the key here is that we always want to be listening, and not only listening to the situation, the problem, but listening to what they're wanting, right? Because from time to time, we're going to have these people where we can't actually fix the problem immediately. We need more information. We need to get another department or person involved. So to ensure, though, that we are staying with the customer or the problem or the situation, we want to be managing all along, right? So listening to them, I have here, we don't want to talk over them. We want to ask good questions and then truly listen. And then paraphrase. I didn't get into all the steps, the 7 steps to active listening, which is part of the full day workshop, and practicing using those. But one of the key things is listening, paraphrasing. So what I hear you saying is, this happened on this day. Is that correct? What happens is they will go from irate and frustrated and angry and maybe yelling, maybe raising their voice. Again, if we're hearing yelling and cursing, as we know, we don't need to tolerate that kind of behavior, and we're not going to get anywhere. But if we are just having an irate customer and they're very stern, we can say to them, wow, I can understand how frustrating this must be. Let me just take some information. I'd love to, help fix this problem. So now we're into the managing of expectations. We're setting the tone for the problem solving stage, right? We're moving them through. And all in all, we're actually helping them in the self-management part of your emotional intelligence model. We're actually helping manage not only our emotions by asking good questions, by showing empathy, we're actually helping them to manage their emotions. So remember when I was saying we can help and support the other person, managing their emotions. We can recognize that, wow, you know what, I'm feeling a bit frustrated for you. Like, I can totally understand. So let me try and help you. Things happen, not everything goes, as planned in our day to day. I will totally put that out there. When I've made mistakes myself. We can even have that kind of conversation with them once they're in a place of, okay, they're hearing me. I can settle down now. I'm feeling heard. So once you are staying calm and maybe adding a bit of humor, emotional intelligence is about when it's appropriate, of course, but you can add a bit of humor. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake the other day and I had to call the customer and tell them, and I was so embarrassed and I totally owned it, but I told them I would fix it, right? So now we can get into rapport building stage. Now we're managing the relationship. We're demonstrating empathy. We're staying calm. We're helping them calm down. And assure them, you'll look into it, is about asking more questions. Okay, so if I understood you correctly, this is what happened. This is what you're wanting. And when do you need that by? Okay, so I can't guarantee that that's going to happen. So manage the expectations, right? Always, give them that possibility that it may not happen when they want it, but we're going to do our best. Assure them. And then set up a timeline to at least get back to them. You might say to them, it may take 3 to 5 business days to help, to make this happen. And I don't know for sure, because I don't know all the ins and outs, but I'm going to promise you, I'm going to set up a timeline with you that in the next 2 days, I'm going to call you back and I'm going to give you an update of some sort, whether it's that we're still working on it, it's gone to XYZ department, or it's gone to my colleague over here. Do you see, we can manage these difficult situations by building rapport And it's almost like that model that it's like it's malleable, right? It's almost like you might start with self-awareness, being aware of your own emotions. And by the way, when you feel yourself getting emotional, breathe, right? I'm going to get into, those steps to calm your amygdala in a few moments, but those are the times when we can just breathe and just tune in and say, they're not really mad at me. They're acting like they're mad at me, but they're really not mad at me. And just pause and say, wow, yeah. And if you're in front of them, be very cognizant of their behavior. So if they're feeling frustrated, you almost want to mirror. You're not going to get angry back at them, but you're going to mirror their behavior. Because if you're smiling and going, don't worry, we're going to be able to help you. It's okay, we got you. They're going to get more frustrated. So you're going to build on that amygdala trigger, right? Oh, the last time I talked to somebody, she smiled and said the same thing, right? They're going to go back into story. So what we want to do is say, yeah, wow, I totally get it. Yeah. And almost mirror. This is getting into more of the body language. See how this topic just goes, and communication skills, but mirroring them. Yeah, that's frustrating. So what I'd like to do is help you. So when you come into, and then they might even mirror you and say, oh, okay, so what would that look like? And you might say, okay, so I just need a few more details. Okay, so we're getting there, right? So now you're mirroring and you're matching their energy, and you will watch if they're in a place to do this. Again, not everybody gets to that place immediately. Some people take a little bit more time, but this is in rapport building. So the neuro linguistic programming, or NLP training, I did that back in the day through my coaching training. And when we mirror and match, we're building rapport, and it's almost like this silent exchange. And so if they're standing up straight and they're kind of up and tall, you stand tall and you say, I've got this, but you don't say that language. You just say, I know it's so frustrating when this happens. If we shrink back and we say, okay, I'd like to help you, but so look them in the eye as best we can. Again, every situation's different. If you need to get your manager involved because it's a very difficult situation, that's a whole different thing, which we're not going to get into. But when we can mirror and match, you will see the exchange. You will see and feel and hear them calming, because you're calm and you're helping them to manage their own emotions. So I wanted to show you another tool that can really be powerful once they're in a place to listen and you've heard their story. And another way to exchange and be assertive, so not aggressive. Okay, so in the communication skills, there's assertiveness, which is where we really want to be most of the time. And it's also very emotionally intelligent, by the way, that skill of communicating with assertiveness, which is standing up for yourself, being respectful, and listening to learn, right? That's the definition of assertive. We're non-confrontational, and we're appreciating and acknowledging them. So just this next framework here is, we want to say the words, I can appreciate how frustrating this must be, and I would like to help you resolve this, rather than, I appreciate that you're feeling frustrated, but it's not something I can help you with. Hear the difference? Or, however, I'm going to have to take and send this over to this department. They don't need to know all the details, and they don't need to hear but or however. That is a conversation stopper. You will start them back into that regression, back into that feeling of their emotional response being triggered, their amygdala being triggered. When we say, I respect everything and appreciate everything you're saying, I absolutely agree, this is so frustrating, and here's what I'm going to do to help you. And you bullet point, right? Give them the details. Yes, it may take a few days, and I will follow up with you. Remember when I said I would update you? Remember when I said I would get back to you and give you an update? So you're constantly acknowledging, because if they start to say, oh yeah, okay, but what if it's like 3 days and I haven't heard from you? I will get back to you in the time that I said. Even if I don't have an answer, I will get back to you. I will put it in my calendar right now. I'm making a note, right? So now you've acknowledged, you've solidified, you've made them, I won't say the word promise because sometimes things happen, but give them a date, and don't necessarily give them a timeline, but just say, by Wednesday, I will get back to you with some kind of update. And I'm making a note of it right now. Can I get your phone number, please? Right? So hear the difference. I agree, and this is really frustrating, and I'm going to help you. So remember, minimize the words but and however. Conversation stoppers. Try not to use it. All right. So like I said, I think I'm doing okay for time. So I think I have a few minutes left, about 5 minutes left, if I'm heard correctly at the beginning. So what I want from you, and again, all these details will be in your handout that you'll get after the webinar. This is sort of the last segment that I want to share with you today, is how do we really tame that amygdala? And I've alluded to it in a few times throughout the presentation today. But when we are in full hijack mode, or we're feeling triggered, or the other person is feeling triggered, you'll recognize the signs, right? If they're sweating or they're fiddling and fussing, you can see them. They may be the freeze kind of person, right? Where they're not wanting to yell or fight, or they may not run out of the store or your office or drop the phone, but you can see them being agitated. The best thing for you to do, especially if you're on the phone or in person, is take a nice deep breath, not deeply so they can hear it and they think you're frustrated, but okay, I'm going to take some information from you, if that's okay. I'd like to help you. When did this happen? So asking a question, when did this happen? Because I'd like to get a timeline for the other department. I'm going to need to talk to another colleague of mine in order to get this moving for you. When did this happen? Right? Get their story. What are you wanting to happen from this? What results are you looking for? Right? And then listen. Okay, sounds good. Hang on, I'm just taking a note, right? And you take your note. Okay, first of all, I want to get, in case something happens and we get cut off, I want to take your phone number and your name so that I have that information in case I need to get back to you right away. Listen, right? So you're pausing, you're asking a question, and before long, if they're in a place where they're feeling heard and they're feeling listened to and they're getting somewhere, this is where you start to build this rapport and this trust. Even in that few minutes, it only takes a second, right, to break trust and erode trust. The second we say, I'm sorry, you've called the wrong number, I can't help you, I'm going to transfer you to this department over here, you've immediately eroded any trust or possibility of helping them, because all they're going to think of is, I'm going to get cut off. Whereas if you take their information, and that way, at the very least, you have their number. If they call back in, you recognize, oh, you're Susie. Yes, we talked earlier. I'm so sorry. Did you get cut off? Did you get what you needed? Right. So now you can pull in that story, and you can even use humor, like, oh my goodness, I dropped 2 calls today. I'm really winning, having a day. And you can add in a bit of humor once they're in that place. And that's where that rapport, that exchange, and they may chuckle and say, oh dear, that's happened to me too. Okay, so what I really need, I have to go in a minute, but what I really need is this. Can you help me? Or can you get me to the right person? Yes, I'm actually going to give them their direct line or an email address so that you can reach them directly. And I'm going to let them know, or I'm going to connect you and I'm going to wait on the phone until you're connected and I can hear the two of you talking. How does that sound? So now they're hearing your intention. And then when it all comes together, your intention and your impact are actually fully aligned. And that's a beautiful thing. For a customer, that's what they want. In the end, that's all they want. They just want to be helped and considered and feel heard, right? So that sort of brings me to our wrap up of our session. And I just want to sort of say, again, we can improve and build our emotional intelligence every day, every year of our lives, right? We can be working on these things, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's like any muscle or any skill, when you work out and you go to the gym and you go full tilt and you're trying to do everything right, it doesn't always, we might get sore muscles and we're like, oh, that was really tough, or wow, did I overdo it, right? And that's the same thing when we're learning a new skill. So I just want to say that it's really important to just test things out, test out these theories and these skills and practice. And I wish you all the best, and I hope this was helpful and that you had some great examples to go by and to remember. Hopefully I'm in your head a little bit, but in a good way. Thank you so much.
All right, that was great. Does anybody have any questions? Now is the time to ask. So you can just unmute yourself and ask the question or just put it in the chat. So far, nobody, but you know, if you think of a question in the next minute or so, oh, hang on, there is, okay, just very informative. Thank you, Heather. All right, so that wasn't a question, just a comment. So I just want to mention, I did put, or we did put several links in the chat there at the very beginning. So we put them right in the beginning. So just you can easily find them. So one is the feedback form. So if you can just fill that out and let us know how we did today and what programs you would like from in the future. Also, we have a link for the next Learning Lab. It's about digital strategy and it's on December 15th. And then I want to mention that we have great resources at the library. You can borrow books on emotional intelligence and customer service. And we have also the LinkedIn and Universal class. Both offer classes and they're free with your library card. So Universal class has a class on communication with diplomacy and tact, and also one on emotional intelligence. And LinkedIn Learning has a class on developing your emotional intelligence and communicating with emotional intelligence. So again, the links to the digital library are in the chat, so just feel free to use it, or you can just contact the library if you have any more questions there. I'm just gonna see, oh, you don't see any links. They should be right at the very top of, if you go to the top, it's from IBK to everyone. So there should be 3 links there. Okay, one person had a question, how do you regulate yourself if you find yourself getting angry? Heather, do you have any specific tips on that?
Yes, great question. And thanks everyone. In case anybody does have to run, I just want to thank everyone for your comments and your kind words in the chat. So yes, so going back to self-regulation, the key to anything in our emotional intelligence realm, whether it's managing ourselves or self-regulation, is we have to first recognize. So when we recognize that we're feeling angry or frustrated, you're going to feel it first, right? You may not say anything or react, but your body's reacting. So, and not only are you feeling it, they're going to feel it and see it. So energetically, and I don't want to get into too much of that, but it really is about feeling and our body language. So we don't want to paste on a smile, but we want to be saying, okay, yes, wow, I'm actually, you can actually say to them, wow, I'm actually feeling frustrated for you. Because part of the energetic exchange, when we hear somebody who's frustrated or angry, we know even if we made a mistake, we know that we wanted to do a good job. So when you feel yourself being frustrated, acknowledge not only your feelings, but theirs. Wow, I can understand how frustrated you're feeling because I'm feeling it. So let me just ask a few questions. So the second we can ask a question, that gives us a moment to breathe. When we can breathe, our thinking mind clears of that stress hormone, that cortisol, and you'll actually feel better. You'll actually feel cooler, right? When we breathe, we're actually internally, we're going to feel less heated, right? Because when we are feeling angry, we feel hot under the collar, we feel our face going red, we may feel our face getting angry. So when I was talking about mirroring and matching, I guess one of the things that we can check in with is, are you feeling angry for them or about yourself for making a mistake? So the best way, if we feel ourselves getting angry, is to take it from, again, all kinds of different perspectives in this. But if I heard you correctly, if you find yourself feeling angry was the question, how do you regulate yourself? Check in with yourself why you're feeling angry. So even take a step back, ask yourself, why am I feeling angry? Am I feeling angry for them? Am I feeling angry because I made a mistake? Or am I feeling angry because, well, I just feel bad for them? Say those words to them. Wow, I think this was my mistake. And now I'm feeling a bit angry at myself. Let me try and fix this. The second, do you hear the acknowledgement? The second we can own it. Now, if you see someone who gets angry and almost gets defensive, when we get defensive, whether it's for ourselves, for our company, we never have to defend. And I'm going to say this very, very lightly because, you know, if somebody's being really brutal towards ourselves or our company, that's a whole different. But if they're just mad because something hasn't gone right, we never have to defend. What we can do is say, wow, you know what, I'm sure something, you know, went wrong in that process. Let me try and figure out what happened, and then we can fix our process. Do you see the difference where we can acknowledge our feelings? We can acknowledge maybe why we're feeling angry, but now we can start to ask ourselves questions, and then we can ask them the right questions. I hope that's helpful. I know that was a bit long. I hope that helps.
All right, let's see. I don't see any more questions here. So we did repost the links, and it seems that everybody sees them now. Yeah, I didn't realize that if you post the links in the beginning, that, you know, people can't see them later. So, okay, one more message. So yeah, just acknowledgement. Thank you. So, all right. All right, Heather, do you still have anything to say to finish up, or?
I would just like to say I'm always here. Again, it's not a promotional thing. I'm always here if you have any questions. My email. So I run the two businesses, and they kind of run Spark Your Vitality. The training and coaching is actually umbrellaed under Cheetah Fusion. I still do all those things just under that brand. So my information is there in the slide. If anybody would like to touch base, if you don't want to ask a question, maybe in the session here, that's fine too. Totally get that, and always happy to help or further inform and support you. And I love that you shared about the books, Katrine. Sorry, a little shout out to you. I love libraries. I was an English guru back in the day. I just read and always studying. So I love that you shared all those great books. Thank you for those resources and sharing them out.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for all that information. That was really great. And thank you for supporting the Small Business Center and the library.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. This was great. Thanks everyone for attending today and for being here and taking time out.